Hello there, this is Eva from Soul GPS. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time, I'd love for you to hit the subscribe button to receive regular content from me. What I talk about are difficult relationships, difficult family relationships, also ways to recover yourself after leaving a toxic arrangement or relationship with someone that you had trusted, and also to build boundaries and figure out who you are and have a strong sense of self so that moving forward you can have a really beautiful life that you have created or co-created with someone you trust and love. So, all right, today I wanted to talk to you about a particularly important topic to me and also to a lot of my viewers, and that is the topic of narcissistic fathers and how they affect both their daughters and their sons. So I'm going to split up today's clip into kind of two parts. We're going to talk about the daughters first, then the sons, and then the things you can do about it if you happen to identify your father as being a narcissistic type. So I recently made a video on narcissistic mothers, and I've noticed that there's quite a bit of information on the web right now on the topic, which is an important topic, and it's something that it's crucial to discern whether it's been part of your life, because the early patterns, the early models we get to grow up with have a tremendous impact on ourselves and how we carry ourselves into the world and our belief systems and the early relationships and the later relationships that we form. So it's really important to decode that and to be able to clean up some of these areas inside of our own psyches and bolster others in order to have healthy relationships moving forward. And of course, the first relationship that is the most important is the one you have with yourself. So in an effort to help you with that and on that journey, I made this video. So let's dive in. So narcissistic fathers, they just like people on the cluster B spectrum, just like people who are empathic, just like mothers who are abusive, they all exist on the spectrum. And in this case, the spectrum of parents, of fathers specifically, who have those very negative influences on their children are ranging from neglectful to tyrannical. So a neglectful father would be an example of someone who is just not really interested in the life of his child, just completely doesn't pay any mind, doesn't take the time to have quality experiences with his child, is just out there doing something else. And it's typically, that's very much related with this man's relationship with his wife, or the mother of the child. If he's neglectful towards her, he will be more likely to be neglectful towards the children as well, especially if they are daughters. As fathers and daughters, it takes a really special man, a very aware man, a very developed, evolved man to know this and to understand how important his presence is in the life of a little girl. Of course, the same is with boys. So the other side of the spectrum, comparing to the neglectful father, is the tyrannical father, who may take too much involvement into his child's life and want to know everything and is extremely controlling and wants to, it's like he views his children as an extension of his own ego, and is going to bring in a regime at home, be extremely be the extreme disciplinarian, and expects his children to perform in a way that he deems is right. And to that kind of a child, growing up in a home like that would be, I would say, very similar to being in a prison. It's like being in captivity without being able to make a choice. And what's especially hurtful and damaging and sad and tragic, really, about these children and their lives and as they grow up is that they never knew anything else. Maybe, they had a friend, who had a really nice dad, so they were able to kind of compare and see that, yeah, there are normal families out there. But for the most part, there tends to be kind of an isolationist approach that dysfunctional families have, where they kind of keep their kids close to their chest and they don't want them to kind of go off and, God forbid, tell on their parents, because it's all a secret, right? It's like they want to project a really positive image to the world, but inside, behind closed doors, it's a very different story that takes place. So the message that this kind of a father sends to their child is, that's his bottom line. And if you don't want to go any further in this video, you can literally like stop right here, because this is the bottom line. And that is, I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable enough, especially for the neglectful, I think, child, because that really seeps into the unconscious. And it's like you may not have a lot of negative memories of your father, doing something bad to you, making you cry or being critical like the tyrannical father would, but you don't feel like he's ever been there, because you feel like you're not interesting, you're not worthy, you're not valuable. So that is a very serious core wound that a lot of people struggle with. So I just want to put it out there, that maybe you've been confused about this, but when you really think of it, you really didn't have that many memories when your father and you were close. So that could stem from that reason. So to qualify as a malignant narcissistic father, it's like you can read the qualifiers on Wikipedia or on the DSM. But what I did is I like to simplify things as much as possible. So what I did is I kind of like boiled it down to 2 A's and 4 E's. So this is how you can kind of tell whether, your father qualifies as more of a clinical case. Number 1, he'd be arrogant. That's 1A. Very arrogant, feels like he's above everybody else. Everybody else kind of just beneath him, below him. And an excessive need to be admired. So admiration and arrogance, so it's like everything he does is for the show. Like when family or friends show up, when there's a party at home, he's going to be like put on this show to be very charming and entertaining. And in that moment, like a child may feel like, my dad is so awesome. You look at my dad, he's so great, he's this. And then the friends leave, the family, stays, and it's a very different story, and suddenly the fear creeps back in, and the guilt and the shame and all of those really negative feelings that this child feels as a result of so much neglect and tyranny. And then we have 4 E's, and that is entitlement. So it's this grandiosity that is so characteristic to narcissistic people. So he feels entitled, and it's something more, it manifests at home for sure, but, in a family hierarchy, it might not be as blatant, because as a father figure, the head of the household, it's like a child assumes that it's a powerful figure, so may not may not question the entitlement, but it more manifests the toxicity of it out there in the world. So when a child watches his dad or her dad interact with other people, and sees like he's just not above all, or behind closed doors starts to talk down on everybody else, and everybody else is just this and that, calls names, gossips about people, talks down on them because they naturally they deserve to do this and that, to have this and that. They cheat on taxes, they cheat on their wife, and so on. So that's that sense of entitlement. Another E is no empathy. So when the child hurts themselves, when they cry, when they need attention, the dad might, that would be nice. Like if he would just pretend, maybe, and that's not nice. Obviously, that's completely not enough. But at least, he's trying. But in most cases, it doesn't care. It doesn't care. It's like, shut the fuck up type thing, right? Instead of, what's happening? Do you need help? Can I hold you? Can I hug you? Like these fathers, just like, forget that. They're not going to do that. There's no empathy there. They are exploitative. Again, very much this manifests in the outside relationship that the child observes in the family and friend and work dynamics. Kids, we observe everything when we're little. We soak things up, and we can feel when something feels dissonant, when things don't add up. So, you can tell like whether the dad is exploitative, and that can be passed on the child, where he feels later on, or she feels later on in life that is okay. In many of these dysfunctional families, when I talk to clients, I work with the people who are more on the empathic scale, who are struggling with narcissists in their life, but they often have siblings who are narcissistic. So, including in my own family, like I saw, and we had multiple families, multiple dynamics. Every time you have a dysfunction, when one person is, more dominant, or there is tyranny, or there's neglect, and with the siblings, there's usually going to be, one that's really empathic and the other one who's very narcissistic. So that could also manifest. And so exploitative and envious. Envy. It's, oh my God, I've been really researching this lately quite a bit, because it is really at the core of the sort of emotional dysfunction of the narcissist, is that they just hate people who have more or something that they want. They hate them to the point when they want to destroy them. So you hear a lot about that. And again, that can manifest as extreme gossip at home and talking negatively about other people. So these are the 2 A's and 4 E's. And so if you had a father like that, just realize, and this makes sense cognitively, obviously, but like emotionally, just think about this often and repeat this to yourself, that he seemed powerful to you because you were a child. So you were powerless. You depended on him 100%. Like, you couldn't just go off and live on the street or live with a neighbor. You were forced to live in this kind of captivity, right? But now, if you met him now, he'd most likely be your contemporary, because he was like in his 20s or 30s, maybe 40s when you were a child. And you're likely in this age now as you're watching this video. So, just imagine, he would be one of us, one of our contemporaries. And his life is just not together. He is chaos inside, and therefore he needs to control the people, because people who have chaos inside of them, they have the need to exert control over others. That's how they kind of balance their dysfunction out. So you were in forced captivity, and narcissists will destroy your boundaries. So that's what the father will do, is he's going to push you. He's not going to allow you to define yourself, to individuate. You're going to have to, either be an extension of him, or you're not going to exist. So they use people, to meet their needs, basically, including their own children. And they will hurt their children. Narcissists will hurt their children by default, just by being in their vicinity. This is what's going to happen. So let's jump into daughters of narcissistic fathers. How we, women, how do we absorb that energy? How do we process it? How do we interpret it? So she will feel neglected, like her needs don't matter. His criticisms, these fathers tend to be very critical, and it can be overt criticism, like, look at you, I don't like how you look, like, watch what you eat, This can be like that. Or it could be more just not paying attention. That hurts. That really hurts. So it doesn't even need to be, overly critical. It can be subtly critical, like, I don't want to spend time with you, like, you disgust me, or, this is kind of how sensitive people will interpret these messages. So they're devastating to her self-image. And so as she grows up, she's always going to be insecure. She's going to feel like there's something wrong with her and she's not good enough, right? She will feel unsatisfied, unsatiated, like she never got enough, never been truly seen or heard. And no matter how much she does or achieves, her accomplishments are never enough. And she's pressed often by the father to do well, to fulfill this image of, like, we're a special family, but gets nothing for it. No reward, no validation. So her father, gets this sense of entitlement and grandiosity for her achievements, but she gets nothing. So she can't win one or the other. And if she doesn't fulfill those expectations, then it's going to be even worse. So it's a form of a, double bind, no win either way. So she's going to have to work really hard. And these women tend to be very successful in their life. The empaths who are raised by narcissistic fathers, or their success may not yet be fulfilled, but they have tremendous creative potential that's kind of waiting to be excavated, because they pay so much attention to every detail of how other people are and how they feel. They're kind of the micro readers of subtleties. So that could be developed into tremendous talent and potential. The effects of having this kind of a father are they tend to, now these are models. This is not going to happen with everyone, but I've seen this a lot, and they can exaggerate their looks and talents as they're growing up as a young woman to get love from others. It could also ensue in a form of promiscuity. So again, no boundaries, right? So if you combine that with wanting to please other men and overachieve. So you have an intelligent young woman who is very insecure about her looks, and she's going to try to get that love from the father because she feels always unsatiated and unsatisfied. She's going to try to do anything and everything can to get that. She will seek a father in her partners while subconsciously expecting that she will not be good enough, and therefore she won't be able to keep them and likely will get cheated on. And this is something that is so deep and so devastating to these women because, they feel like no matter what they do, it's always going to be like a lost case, right? And it's like the unfulfilled Oedipal complex, because for a girl to develop healthily, she needs to feel like she's the princess, like her father just loves her. Of course, not in the sense of spoiling her, because that can also lead to a disaster, but in a balanced way, like, you matter to me, I want to protect you, I care about the people you spend time with, I care, your time is valuable, and he instills those values in her. Versus somebody who just doesn't care, and so she's always out there looking and seeking, any form of attention she can get so that she can fill herself up. So she will. It's like if her abusive partner is even slightly better than her father was to her mother or to her, she's going to think that she had a jackpot, right? So it's very difficult to be objective because when you're coming out from that wound. What else? She may rebel. That's another thing that can happen. She may rebel in order to shed his power over her, and sometimes in the process sabotaging her own personal success by stifling her creativity and authenticity. So it's the idea of throwing the baby away with the bathwater. So it's like, I don't want you to control me. So the child is still going like, okay, I have to do X, Y, and Z later in life, right? Father's no longer in the picture, or he is, but he's somewhere out there far away, but he's still inside, right? He's deeply lodged in the mind of the child, of the woman, but the child is the one who's reacting still. He's alive, she's alive, the little girl's alive, and she's still seeking that approval. But at the same time, she hates her father because of all the horrible things that he had done to her, right? So that's more of the tyrannical, controlling father that would be the case with. And so she's going to be like, no, I'm not going to do this. No, I'm not going to do that. She's going to be sabotaging her own personal success and procrastinating because that's the one area in her life where she still has control. Because in her relationship, she doesn't feel like she has a lot of control. Because the men she likes, are the men who remind her of the father and who will always abandon her, just like the dad did. So it's pretty complex. What else? And this can also manifest, as I mentioned, as procrastination or, perfectionism, which is also a form of procrastination. So as a result of having such a father, you will be much more able to put up with negligence, with abandonment, with infidelity in relationships, because deep inside you feel like you deserve it, because that's what you're used to since you were very young. So this is the childhood training I talk so much about. It sets up stage of our behavior later in life. The neglectful behavior of the partner will reinforce in her the belief that she is not enough, indeed perpetuating the cycle. So if that person, she attracts a man who is more on a narcissistic scale, which is what tends to happen, right? She seeks a strong male who can fulfill kind of the role of the father, and at the same time she has very low self-worth, and she deep inside believes that he's going to leave her anyway. He's going to sense that and won't be able to connect with her on that level, and she will not be able to connect with him because she doesn't really fully trust him, and she's just counting days until he does the same thing that dad used to do, and it becomes almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, or another thing that this woman could do is she could be pushing people away, pushing healthy people away from her because she is afraid of commitment, because it's safer to be this way. So it's like she will become very good at starting relationships and ending relationships, but not so much at going deep into developing a relationship, which requires, a tremendous amount of intimacy and showing up in her raw form. And you, of course, have to do that with a partner whom you can trust, not with somebody who is, going to betray you. So it becomes a fairly difficult dynamic. So what would a healthy father do? So if she had a healthy father, if we all had a healthy father, oh, wouldn't that be awesome? He would give her daughter a sense of protection and validation. So when she cried, when she needed help, he would be there for her when she was little and slowly teach her how to take care of herself in the world, and to expect that, there are going to be all sorts of different people out there, and you're going to have to learn to stand on your own and be strong. And if you feel unsafe out there, you all can always come back, and daddy will be here for you. No matter what, you can always come back. So what a wonderful dynamic that would be, right? It's like you feel safe to reach out. You feel safe that you can go out there, make mistakes, take risks, and then come back home and feel safe again if you need to kind of recover after you've been kind of gotten a bit bruised. What else? He would fill her up so she won't let in just anyone into her life. So this kind of a woman would be much more picky when it comes to her partners, because she's secure in herself, and she knows what real love truly feels like inside of her. And she feels special just because she exists. It's really simple. It's like there's nothing she needs to do in order to get his love. He will love her no matter what. But then if she, in addition to that, does great things, he's going to support her and cheer her on and tell her how much he's proud of her. So that's the healthy dynamic. All right, now let's get into sons of narcissistic fathers. So a father would be competitive with his son. He will use him as an extension of his ego. So again, we're talking about the tyrannical and controlling father, the insecure father, who feels like, maybe he hadn't had the chance, even though he's all that, he hadn't had the chance to really, do a lot of things in his life. And, people who have narcissistic core are really deeply ashamed at the core. And it's usually a shame for, not feeling like they've been able to fulfill their own potential. And so they will project that onto their own kids and then push the kids to do the things that they weren't able to do. So if a child is an artist, or they have an artist boy, he's going to want him to become a football player or be a doctor because he always wanted to do that for himself and he hadn't been able to. So there's a lot of those dynamics. The son of a narcissistic father will always feel like he can't measure up. No matter what he does, the dad has that strong image. Remember, for a little boy, father feels like a god. He feels like this very powerful, massive, undefeated, invincible figure. It doesn't matter how faulty he is. Doesn't matter his size. Doesn't matter, none of it matters. It's the primary care figures in our lives are gods, for at least for us, for a certain period of time, until realize that Santa Claus doesn't exist, and that our mother and our father really didn't know that more than we do know now, or probably maybe even less, because if you're here and if you're watching this video, you're digging deep, so you know quite a bit. What else? He becomes achievement-driven and perfectionistic. So there's that sense of competition. He can never do enough. If he comes home with a B, dad is going to say, why not an A? Then he comes home with an A. Why not an A+? He made the team for the football. Why isn't he the captain? It's just never enough. So he may have that drive instilled in him. And now, depending on his temperament, because, some people do really well with that. They're very driven naturally, and if that he does have that extroverted temperament, the son, where it resonates with him, he may do really well in his life, even though he's always going to be chasing that approval. But if it becomes really tragic if the son is very much not into that at all, he's more introverted. He wants to paint, he wants to do music, he wants to do other things, then it's going to be very difficult, because not only he's not even able to satisfy his father on these little micro levels, where the achievement-driven son may get a little bit of little crumbs here and there, get a pat on the back, or, in front of other people, be like, yeah, this is my son, I'm so proud of him, that kind of thing. This one is not going to get nothing. He's going to be, crying there alone, or licking his wounds behind the closed doors of his room, and he's going to feel like he doesn't really have a father, and that's going to breed a tremendous amount of contempt, sorrow, and sadness, and maybe lead to depression. So just like the daughter, the son will never feel good enough. He will feel empty inside and always second rate. Not having the approval of a father is a tremendous wound that needs to be excavated, needs to be looked at, because it ultimately all comes from a lie, right? Every child is born with infinite value, with infinite worth. Life has infinite worth. It's a gift, right? So it's the lie we get instilled with as we grow up in dysfunctional families, which is usually, the projection of a sick core of the parent, that we're not good enough, we're not this enough, we're not that enough, or we're too much, or God knows what. That's a lie that stems from that person's skewed relationship with themselves and their own parent. That's it's like this snowball effect of generational abuse that this child gets hit with. So it's a lot to process for a little being, who doesn't have the cognitive skills to understand any of this. And it breeds shame. And then it can go either way. That person can become very insecure and learn to deal by being tremendously empathic and always fulfilling everybody else's needs, so he can get that validation that way, or will become very narcissistic. And, that person is going to start to use people for their own purposes and have contempt for others. So shame. And I love the quote by Anais Nin, who said that shame is the lie somebody told you about yourself. And it's so, so, so true. If this resonates with you, if you feel this, write this down somewhere, put it on the screen, put it in your bathroom or on the wall somewhere, and remember this, repeat this to yourself, that shame is a lie someone told you about yourself. So this son will never give up, right? I'm sorry, this son will always have to fight with this whole achievement and trying to find that approval, and will either give up at some point and accept the defeat, or will continue fighting and achieving. But he will always feel insecure and that he's not enough. It will be very, very difficult for either one to relax and enjoy life. And you can this is again, model. Life is way more complex than this, but we could split it into two possibilities of the kind of a, man that could grow up as a result of being fathered by a narcissist. It could be either somebody who's kind of defeated and resigned. I would say, I guess that's called a beta man, who's just, doesn't feel like he has what it takes in order to, climb the social ladder, so to speak. Or it could be somebody who's very much into it and is highly competitive. It's like it's in his blood now, and he's going to become the alpha male, right? The person who may even go to the extremes of using other people to fulfill their needs, perpetuating father's behavior. So never available, neglectful, cheating on his wife, never available for his children. So it can go either way. So what would a healthy father be like for a son? What kind of, what would that dynamic look like? So first and foremost, a healthy father needs to believe in his son and make his son know that, no matter where he's at, he's proud of him, but he also knows that he is capable of more. So that gives the son kind of this encouragement to become a fully realized man. He teaches him how to be a man by example and spending time together. So quality time is very important, and giving his child those life lessons, right? Talking to him about things, asking him questions, letting the child ask the father difficult questions. But then also by the fact that they do have this quality time together, instills in him the idea that he's important, that he matters, and if the father also has high moral value, then the son will observe and learn by example, how to be a healthy man himself. So children do really remember those moments, those moments when we've had those quality times with our parents. I remember to this day, my dad has taken me only on one trip in my life ever. I think it was like 5 or something, and I remember it to this day. And he instills values of self-protection in his son, as well as that then translates into the desire to protect others. So because he was protected, now he wants to do the same. Because that's kind of in the nature of a man, is to protect women and children. So what to do if you can identify yourself as being a daughter or a son of a narcissistic father? First thing you need to do is realize that it is what it is. We have to accept it. We can't change it. Past is what it is. We can't rewrite it, but we can reframe it. We can learn to interpret it differently, and we can look at it as lessons in life where we've identified the holes, the lacks, the empty parts within ourselves, and we can learn to fulfill them ourselves by giving ourselves healthy, positive self-regard. I just made a video about healthy self-regard, so you can watch that. So learn doing that, and also to define yourself, to form strong boundaries. And you have every right to cut ties with an abusive father. If he continues to behave in this way, sometimes they kind of mellow out. I've known some cases when, they reach their 60s, 70s, and they kind of like, they stop, they're a little bit nicer, and there might be a potential to recreate some kind of a new form of a relationship with him. But if it's not available, and if you feel like he's still doing the same thing, he's still devaluing you, he's still being nasty, he's still, being critical, then you have no obligation to stick around. You can just, do the minimum to keep things going, or not at all. It's really up to you. Again, if he's abusive, you have every right to set the boundary and cut ties and go no contact. So you're gonna have to determine that. But just know that no matter what you choose, you're no longer dependent on him. You've got yourself. You've got this, and you can do well on your own. If there are like inheritance issues which can come up and happen, and be, what kind of weigh you down in that decision, then you're going to have to sort of also weigh it out, what kind of involvement makes sense to you, given where you are in your life and what your needs are, or maybe not at all. So don't let him abuse you. You can always leave. If you're in a situation where you're at a holiday party and, he starts to rage or, subtly criticize you, you can always just say, okay, I will see you later when you calm down, and just walk away. You can push back. You can be assertive. Realize he is not God. He's not be all and know all. He may use guilt or shame, to control you, but these are just tactics. So as long as you know that these are tactics and they're not truth, again, this evoking shame is telling somebody a lie about themselves. Then it will be that much easier for you to detach from that. Do therapy and inner work so that you can understand what happened and individuate from him. That is really important. That's kind of like having a second birth in life. When you go through this process, it could happen as a result of being in a abusive relationship, and then later on you realize, wow, why am I this way? You start to inquire, start to look at all the patterns in your life, and as a result, you get to realize, wow, I don't want to be like this anymore, and I don't need this person in my life, and take the practical steps you need in order to individuate and have a second birth. So you can take in the good, let go of the rest. Appreciate the work you're doing in yourself, the self-awareness you're developing and learning to be in control of your life. It is so important. So many people I work with, they're just so amazing. They inspire me. Every call I have, I always walk away feeling like, wow, this person is just so amazing. If they only could see themselves the way I see them. And so it's really important for you that wherever you are in your journey, to be able to pause every so often and just realize you're doing a tremendous amount of work, and just be proud of yourself. Be proud of this. What else? Reward yourself for your achievements, no matter how small. So this is the person that still seeks the approval. Give yourself the approval. Take the time to acknowledge your successes. Evaluate your personal relationships. Do you use people? Do you have that propensity, or do you date narcissists? Do you attract people who use you? It's very important you know this. Get out of abusive relationships so that you can heal. As long as you're still in that dynamic, it's very difficult to move on. So get out. Work on your self-esteem. It's incredibly important because children of abusive parents tend to have low self-esteem. Keep telling yourself that you are enough. It has to become your mantra. And even if you may not believe in it fully yet, at the time when you're telling this to yourself, keep working on it, keep repeating it, and a time will come when your body, your nervous system will pick it up. And when that happens, things will start to really gain great momentum for you. Enjoy your time alone. Use it to invest in yourself and create your life map to inquire into yourself so you can have a sense of purpose. Build a healthy circle of new friends that fill you up. So surround yourself with really nurturing, positive people. Or you may also rekindle other relationships that were really positive, but maybe, some time has passed and you wonder about, how's this person doing? Haven't talked to them in a decade. And it may turn out to be still a very, very nice relationship. So So that's something you could also explore. I did that, and I was so surprised, as to how much love there still is in some of these older relationships. And also, you can write him a letter. You can write him a letter. You don't have to send it. In fact, I would strongly advise against it, because narcissistic father will never get it. And then you can burn it. You can just let it go and embrace yourself and know that things will be okay. It's okay that you had a narcissistic father. You can heal from it. It doesn't have to victimize you. It doesn't have to destroy you. It doesn't have to make you worse off. In fact, it can make you better off. It can make you more aware, more strong, much more individuated, powerful individual. And that is my wish for you. And I hope this video was helpful. I invite you to share your thoughts below. Spread the love. If you know anyone who could benefit from this video, feel free to share. And I thank you so much for supporting my channel, supporting my work. And if you need personal help, information is down below. And I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.